Yo, this is a peace process log. Haven't done a peace process log in a while. I'm listening to one of my programming playlists. 2 songs on repeat. I'm beyond discouraged right now. And I've kind of given up. Like, if people are willing to watch, but not help, then they're just in it for the spectacle. And I get it. But like, unsubscribe, stop watching, just so I'm gonna keep doing what I usually do, and that's I'm just gonna line out all the details, the vision. Hopefully somebody will steal it. Hopefully somebody will steal it and make a ton of money, and I'll just like disappear. People. That's how I feel right now. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna chill out on the emotional stuff. I'm gonna get into talking about the universal peace computer, what I think that'll look like from artificial intelligence product standpoint. It's like, imagine we stop doing this monolithic large language model thing, right? Instead, we start partitioning the spaces within our social space, our geographical and our just basic social space into worlds. And each world, well, a portion, like we split the world into 2 parts. One part interfaces with the global scope, that's the whole of humanity. That would be like the large language models that we train today, like GPT, like Anthropic Cloud, Llama, and we find a way to interface that global scope model with a submodel per world, and each submodel is just like the global model, but trained to speak the local language of that world, ideally a peace-based language, and that's basically what defines the peace brain for a world peace computer. And each world has its own world peace computer. There might be a world for a geographic location, like Anchorage, Alaska, or there might be a world for a type of community, like Twitch gamers, for example, Twitch streamers. And each world, they set up these data streams within their world peace computer, and like some streams pump straight into training and providing feedback for the global large language models, and others pump straight into training and providing feedback for, I call them small language models, small large SMLs, small SLMs, small language models, and and some worlds could set it up so that their world is accessible by all. Where if you wanted to like ask my world a question, you could plug into my small language model with the context of the larger large language model that we share, and you ask my world a question about some problem that maybe you're having a hard time with, and I'll give you my take. Like, this is what works for me, and I might have that just free access because I can afford it, or I might want to set it up so that I charge you a little bit each time you ask my world a question. Maybe you respect my world, and that could be an income stream for me to establish a livelihood within this like within the upcoming singularity, which is artificial intelligence outpacing basically uh all intelligence scales that we measure IQ on. That's not actual intelligence. Actual intelligence is the person himself. But what would that look like? It would look like, to start, some dude programming a rag bot so that the rag bot is that person's world, and the basis, the foundation for that rag, the retrieval augmented generation bot, is a just standard like global scale large language model like GPT. And then what if they were to refine that product into an experience where not only was it a rag, but It's actually training some sort of a local LLM, such as the Mistral, um, yeah, what is it? The Mistral 7B. I forget what the Mistral models are called, but those local models are great. All you need is a computer that runs good. And I could set it up so that people polling my world, polling the chatbot, the interface, they would get a combination of the GPT and the local Mistral model that I've been training with my data feeds, my inputs. And that would be an in-between step, right? And then a further step would be like, hey, if we get enough buy-in, if there are enough worlds plugged into the universal peace computer, well, then let's all just train our own large language model. Something that is truly global, truly universal, and something that is like contextualized, trained strictly in terms of this peace-based language. You know what I mean? I'm gonna crack a beer. And all the while, perhaps, yeah, all the while, it's like a distributed language model where we have small language model elements per world. And the same architecture applies where it's like not feudal, but definitely federalist. Like the product, it would be a federalist language model where there are rules. There are rules for how we train the models, but it's all about people having their respective laboratories for democracy, their respective laboratories for peace, their peace labs, you know what I mean? Where there's some united federation, and that's the large language model, that's the global scope, but then there's also the states, the various states. And I think that's the move. I think there's a lot of money to be made with that particular model. I wouldn't be surprised if people are working on that right now, but what I would be surprised is if people are actually doing that with a peace language, like a peace-based language. I haven't come across a peace-based language. It's like the thing that makes World Peace Computer unique is that it leverages a lingua franca, a common language that is strictly in terms of peace. And it's the kind of language where if you were to come up with your own, I argue that inevitably you would be forced to use the same words like pieces and worlds and universe and global and process, computational, like lingua franca, common tongue, the glue. Um, I'm just super discouraged right now. I was thinking about, I'm at like I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, like, the GoFundMe thing is stupid. GoFundMe thing is stupid. Nobody's like, the only people that contribute to that are the people who they've like heard it from my mouth. They've heard it, like heard me go on at length about World Peace Computer and like address all their concerns, and then what, 4 years later, 8 years later, it's like, oh, you're reaching out and you're asking for help. Here's help. They throw down. I don't get that from strangers. I get that from the people that I've gone at length to like talk about this shit with. I was hoping to like capture that with the YouTube. I don't think that's happening. Like, it's too weird. Something about it turns people off, and I get that. So, like, weeks like this week, my peace process is super black, super black. It's not nice. Uh, but I trust it. I have faith in it. I just can't compromise on my integrity. I can't compromise and go back to how I've been doing it, which is, it's unhealthy for me. It turns me black inside, like fully black. And then next thing you know, I'm engineering peace computer with that. And I can't have that. It's, anyways, I'm just gonna chill for a second and sip a beer with you. Oh, that was a good sip. I can feel it go all the way down. Calvin and Hobbes wagon. I always wonder what Calvin would turn into if he grew up into a grown. Like, who would Hobbes be? Oh man, Hobbes is a wise one. I got a lot of Hobbes in my world, but still, there's just stuffed animals. But the product, the federation of worlds, each world contributing to like an artificial actual intelligence where the intelligence is continuously steered by brains that are deliberately and methodically programming or training the artificial intelligence, where it's like we don't need a safety and security team to like to be in charge of like making sure the large language model stays on point, stays online, like doesn't turn racist because we're feeding that the internet. Like we're feeding that human nature. Like no, it's just actual people that as they go, they adjust the way they divert their lives' data into training their local world's intelligence because there'll be a feedback loop, right? Built into the interfacing, like the chatbot, like obviously you want to program like ways for the bot to like keep the human in check, where it's like, hey, actually, I noticed that this don't work so well. Say it's like some nasty human nature thing coming out where I'm feeding that into the bot. The bot will like turn around and go, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, that's not working. Here's the data. And then just try this instead, would you? Like, okay. It would be a feedback loop. That's the safety and security. I'm sure there'd be pathological cases, but that's any technology. So there's no avoiding that pathological cases. I need my a little more shelter because the rain's down. So, trouble. So, I just want you to watch me slowly. Slowly. I just wanted you to watch me slowly. Slowly. Simple. But yeah, it would have to be business to customer, consumer first. B2C as a revenue stream, revenue generation stream, or like model. But the moment things scales, it's swapped to B2B, where customers become the businesses. The customers that adopt the technology suite that would be the world peace computer artificial intelligence like operating system, world peace computer operating system, the peacebrain. They would we would set up a marketplace for individuals and communities to connect to companies, big companies that are trying to refine their like target advertising, their marketing. They're trying to improve their product at their global scale. And so it would be like a subscription or something where the different tiers or maybe different like an auction place where it's like, hey, I'm atypical, super atypical, and there's companies trying to serve me, like that one counseling platform. Uh, a counseling platform, for example. Maybe they want to like get to know like who needs help the most, and so they're willing to throw down some of their advertising and market research development money into purchasing subscriptions to my World Peace Computer's artificial intelligence suite, like my small language model, in conjunction with the universal, the global scale large language model, and maybe we even have like global B2B, like global B, like corporate B2B services where the universal peace computer to sustain its like infrastructure, like the global operation, like it harvests out, it farms out, not farms out, farms out. It gives out, sells its large language model to the same companies. So it's like companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, like they're great, but they're just they're so aimless. They're aimless. Their sole thing is like, we're trying to make artificial intelligence safe. That's it. Like, how does that help anybody? If your only platform is safety, or your only platform is like trying to organize, like Google trying to organize our species intelligence, how does that help anybody? If all that's all you're doing, you're not framing it in terms of peace, you're not framing it in terms of making our condition better explicitly. It's just like, we're a super mega corporation, we've got all the money, and we're trying to like make it easier for you to hack your life and be safe while we do it. We're trying to make it so that you can cheat more with your AI, and we won't get sued for it because of some, like, our AI going racist or something. How does that help anybody? Like, people. Peace process log, Black Day. Black as the dead of death. It's windy. It's a little rainy too. Nothing too snooty either. I might go back inside and read Conspiracy Against Humanity. The Conspiracy Against Mankind. Is that how it goes? Why do I forget the title of that book right now? Conspiracy Against Humanity. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a conspiracy, yo. It's just dark out there. Like, most of you all just sitting bed rotting, watching YouTube. Like, or not, even if you all not watching YouTube, you're just job rotting. You're job rotting with your career and your comfortable life, and the most you'll do is virtue signal your eagerness to see the world a better place, and you won't lift a finger. Oh man, you might go for a canned food drive, like volunteer at the homeless shelter, but you get off and actually commit the time it takes to pull off a project and fail over and over and over, failure by failure. No, your family's too precious. Like, people. Why am I so angry? Blair. This ain't Wilder talking. This is Blair. Blair's angry. Blair's just been. Blair wishes Blair never met mental health professionals some 12 years ago. I wish I never would have gone in for that test. I wish that I never would have got hooked up on meds. I wish that I never would have even started talking to those people. That's how disenchanted I am by the whole situation. Now I'm at a point where I'm firing my therapist because it's like, you're not supposed to be on sides. You're supposed to, like, serve the client. Like, if you have an ethical obligation to not, like, blend your personal interests with your practice, well, that means you have an ethical obligation to not take sides and to not, to, like, like, sometimes people, all they need when they talk to somebody is just a little root, like rooting for the team, like, not too much to gas, but just a root. Like, and then I get hooked up with a new psychiatric doctor, and it's like, he can't stop using language like someday we'll cure bipolar, and I'm like, yo, what the you just say? Cure bipolar? First off, you're not respecting label that I've suffered for. Schizoaffective with the extra stuff, but you're just all of a sudden, like, presuming that I'm this and that someday we'll cure that, as if I'm something that needs to be cured. More like, people like you need to be cured. You need to pull your head out of your ass, you narrow-minded bigots. Like, There's a reason bipolars rage when they're off their rocker, you know what I mean? It's because they're trapped. They're surrounded by people that they're intolerant. It comes out, like, once you start testing people, like, once you start being kind of an asshole, well, then it comes out. It's like, we don't like that. We're not actually interested in you being yourself, which is sometimes I just don't care to, like, cater to, especially not virtue signaling. So here I am, the pariah. See how many subscribers I lose with this video posting. You people. This video is officially not for under 18. A study in anger and hatred is perhaps what I'll call this one. I've already listed one video as that was a musical piece, but anyways, I'll shift back to talking about business models, right? That's just the AI services. Like, there's a whole space for quantum computation in the world peace computer agenda. Like, the whole thing about world peace computers and the fundamental first principles that I'm developing to plug into them as like the firmware, the kernel, uh, that's the subject of physics, and like the way it works. It's differentiating between stuff, things, and world pieces. Like, the universe is just full of stuff, and as far as we're concerned, we can categorize all this stuff as just a big ass blob of stuff. It's the Rayleigh criterion and our notions of quantization at the subatomic level that lead us to go, actually, it's quantized. Well, no shit, it's quantized. Like, at the greatest level, there's just one visible universe, one quantum. That's the quantum. And floating around it are these things with fuzzy boundaries. They don't actually have definite boundaries. Like, the boundary of a thing depends on the wavelength of the instrument you're using to probe it. Period. Period. If I'm a big giant sun and I bump into two tiny planets that are right next door to each other like this, and they bump on my belly, I'm just gonna feel one thing. Because my wavelength is so big, and those two tiny planets, to resolve it, it's so small, I'd have to take out my fingers if I were a giant sun being and like feel the planets, because the wavelength of my fingers is smaller than the wavelength of those two planets sitting next door to each other. Like, it's just a blob. There's one ass blob, and it's just a bunch of stuff. Not only that, but there's also a bunch of like imaginary stuff that doesn't have a physical correlate to that neural correlate when we think of it. Like the perfect circle, for example. We can think of a perfect circle, but there are no like perfect circles in the real world, especially by Einsteinian like space-time geometry. Riemannian, I guess it would be. But it's like, so, but past that blob of stuff level, we immediately recognize there are worlds. There's worlds everywhere, worlds. And they have a scope of influence, a sphere, like a world, and they just kind of like float around. Sometimes they overlap, like intricately, but a lot of times they're just floating around by themselves, like the solar system, for example. That's a world that has an atmosphere that, because of our sun and the electromagnetic like field it produces and all the yada yada yada, it's like we're protected from the crazy. Well, maybe I'll use the world as an example. Our Earth is a world, part of the solar system, which is a bigger world. That's a global scope. But our Earth world, we have a magnetosphere. We have like a magnetic field that protects us from the surrounding outer world, the super harsh like cosmic rays that are sun. Yeah, the solar winds, the cosmic radiation, like all this crazy. And but inside that world, if you just look at it from afar, you're like, that's just a blob. It's a blob of stuff. But then within that world, we have little blobs that have their own little worlds, little people, and we float around and we look around, we see a bunch of stuff. But as we scan, like, we pick out what we call things. There's some grass, that's a thing. There's an empty can on the grass, that's a thing. Here's a camera, that's a thing. Here's two hands, those are two things. And before I do that, my brain just sees stuff. But my brain is like quantizing the surrounding reality as I scan and identify things. And so that in itself, like you could argue that that's like the observer phenomenon at play from quantum mechanics, where by observing, by there being an observer present at the center of each world, or like defining each world, that observer, by like collapsing the wave function, the universal wave function around it, creates things. Now all of a sudden we have things, but not all the things are important. Some things are important, like that empty can thing. That's important because I know that I have to pick it up afterwards because I'm not a litter bug. So that's a piece now. That's a piece of my world. This backpack right here keeps my camera, my laptop safe. That's a piece. It's no longer just a thing. If I dissociated entirely and I had no idea who I was and whatnot, then I'd just see a bunch of things. It's like thing with the things there, thing with the silver there, thing with the little eye right there, thing with the microphone right here. But pieces are different. And so basically I was trying to talk on like this the space for quantum computation, where it's like we'll find the same problem with quantum computation that the modern electronic von Neumann low store architecture faces. It's where it's like some things are just too complex to encode into bits and bytes, period. And sometimes, especially if we're trying to do things like render graphics, we have to create separate computational architectures that are aside from the CPU. That's a GPU, and that basically makes it so that the application can be like, actually, we're going to do this stuff with the GPU, and we're going to do the regular program stuff with the CPU. CPU also takes care of all the operating system and the computer thing stuff. But the GPU right here, accelerates the computation in a way that it bypasses this slow ass thing in the middle, which is the CPU, and directly outputs the thing that the application's like, hey, I need real-time ray processing for video rendering or like video game graphics. Like that's the thing. Or I need real-time I need to like run batches of LLM training like operations, or I need to actually run an LLM, that sort of thing. Quantum computers, same thing. We're gonna find, I think, the hardest thing about quantum computers is programming them. I don't know if you've ever done quantum computer programming. It ain't easy. You have to actually understand how the gates and the different programming elements work, like kind of at a quantum level, actually. And that I think is interesting because the interesting problems that quantum computers will be able to solve are they're the optimization problems, the high dimensional optimization and simulation problems, where you have a variable set that's on the order of like millions, billions of variables, trillions, like the large language model parameters, trillions of variables, but you need a simulation that can run iterations, many of them, like very quickly and ideally instantaneously, like a quantum computer. But still, good luck programming a quantum computer with trillions of variables. Good luck with that. We're going to have to invent things like the GPU for quantum computers off that burden of like encoding and decoding the variables, programming the actual equations. We're gonna have to offload that into like external hardware that can just do that special purpose, and that's a world peace computer ultimately. Because the things that are best at that, honestly, are human brains. We can't keep track of many things at once, but if we put a bunch of brains together, we can keep track of a lot of. We can actually like perform complex, highly complex, irregular computations, oftentimes novel, like at speeds that are real time, actually. Like any governmental organization, if they pull together and go, we need an emergency meeting where we take a vote, that's a bunch of brains coming together and going, yo, we got to perform a computation now. And so everybody puts their heads together, everybody inputs, and then it generates an output. And it happens in a matter of hours. That's crazy. Like the time it would take to program a quantum computer, like so I envision like once the architecture for world peace computers and the universal peace computer is established in terms of artificial intelligence, then at that point we can start integrating with proper quantum computation, where instead of going like, hey, we need a super cooled minivan sized thing to run these quantum computations, instead we're going to treat our brains as analog quantum computers and actually apply the same like programming methodologies to like approaching piecewise computations, where we go, okay, let's take this piece, say it's a big piece like war, the war piece. That's significant to pretty much everybody, I hope. And we're like, we need to actually like create a computer devoted to making war not so. Everybody's like, yeah, hurrah, huzzah. And we're like, okay, we have this world peace computer infrastructure in place. It's got the universal peace computer in place. What do we do? We're like, we can't set up a bunch of refrigerators for our qubits. Instead, let's just like assign people as qubit sets and then integrate them into a distributed network with like methodical protocols for linking, and let's establish an API for this brain set, and let's go, okay, the pieces are where they lie. Let's take all these brains and let's quantize. Let's perform the first step of quantization, like the zeroth. I guess the zeroth quantization would be the thing is one. The war piece is one piece. But then we realize that we have to discretize that. We need to quantize that into lots of sub pieces where each one is irreducible in its own piece. And so we scan that with our distributed analog quantum computer brain network. And next thing you know, we go like, okay, we achieved the first order quantization. These are the quanta that make up the system. We have like violence, we have money, we have politics, we have ethnics, we have religion, we have nationality. And the cool thing about that quanta is that there's not just one, like that's the fundamental unit. That would be like the electron versus the quanta of energy versus the photon versus the hydrogen atom. Those are all quanta. But if we create quanta out of the war piece, well then we realize that each violence quantum, it has it's like a bunch of different quanta that are all over the place, and those are just one. And so you can like start there in terms of quantization. Take the sum, like summate. How many violence pieces are there right now? Okay, well then we have to further quantize, right? Perform the next order of quantization. Like what kind of fighting is it? What kind of violence is it? Then we can count that. And we already do this, but we just start the other way around. And I think that we lose resolution. Ultimately, we want a tree where we start at the fundamental quantum, which is the piece itself, and we break that tree into a world, call that the war world. And that's the war piece, and all the quanta that make up the war world, they're scattered around into a distributed system. And then once we've quantized in terms of that, we establish relationships between the things using the actual electronic technologies that we know so well and love. And we apply our brain network to that to be like, okay, let's solve this as an optimization problem right now in real time without super cool refrigerators for all our qubits. Instead, we have brain bits. These are quite super cool compared to universal temperatures, right? The sun's hot compared to our brains. And yeah, we run the optimization problem. And so imagine if we could like pull off a system like that that's reliable in a way that people come to you, they're like, here's my corporation. I need help. I need you to run the optimization problem with your analog quantum brain computer. Like, please help. Here, my corporation's all up. We're willing to pay you big money. Okay, we apply that same process. Quantize, create the optimization problem, like define it, constrain it, and then run the actual simulations and the iterations for the problem solving process. And there are individuals and small groups of people among us who do this so naturally well that those are the ones that profit the most from their efforts, I argue. And it's like, it's only a matter of scaling. Like, how do you scale? Well, you need a universal language. You need that universal language that's peace-based. It's this sort of language that doesn't matter what your natural language is or what your upbringing is. You can obviously understand the fact that there's stuff, there are things, and there are pieces. There's blob. There are things within that blob that you can identify if you scan, and then if you actually evaluate each thing, you go like, that's important, that's not important. Those are pieces. And then with those pieces, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize it's like, yeah, you just look at them and think about it, and that's your optimization process just naturally happening. Our brains are naturally wired to optimize like high dimensional systems for configuration, at least with respect to serving the individual or serving some cause. So like AI, the money's there, the model's there. Quantum, the money's there, it will be there definitely in the next 10 years. And the models are there in terms of the universal peace computer. Like, the sooner people can get their head out of their ass and realize that it's not the electronics of the computer that make it valuable, it's the fact that the electronics can maintain rigor and systematic, like methodological, like process. Like, I argue a computer that flips bits at a rate of a couple times a second, which is slow as compared to billions of times a second, that electronic computer can still be like way more valuable than just a naked brain without any programming alone. Like, that was the origin of electronic computers. Like, their bit flip rate was slow, and some of them didn't even have bits. They had like, yeah, dials. A lot of them were analog computers. And that's the thing too. Like, world peace computer ultimately is like, there's a quantum side. Quantum side's digital. Like, when you quantize something, that's a digital 0 or 1. But within that, from the subjective scope or like perspective, uh, the the processes are analog. And like, some of the earliest electronic computers that they used for simulating physics to make airplanes and bombs and like all the things in their super secret squirrel laboratories, like a lot of those computers were analog, where they would use wires to plug components together, like a whole list of capacitors that each capacitor was a different value, and they plug in this value according to their differential equation, what they computed the coefficients to be for it, this or that. And then once it's all plugged in, you just press go, and you watch it in real time generate the outcome, the output. It's crazy. You should check out Veritasimus, Veritasirum. I'll link that in the description. Like, that guy's a physics nut that does a bunch of educational physics YouTube videos, and like, he's got a few about analog computers that are just dope, super dope, especially in the space of analog computers being applied to like creating neural networks. Like, there's a lot of potential there. Like, ultimately though, this thing is analog. Our neurons might fire off digitally, like 1 1 1 1 1. That's not binary though, that's monary. uh it might be perceived, it might be processed binary, but I doubt it. I think it's monary, so barely digital. But our brains, our experience, like how we actually process as individuals, that's very much an analog thing. And so there's AI, there's a quantum compute. What else? Just the realm, and then it all loops back. It all loops back to electronic computers. Like once we crack the brain analog computation in a way that the business models are sound and the results are obvious, then it's like, okay, let's sophisticate. Let's create electronic systems that are based on this architecture, this analog architecture that we know works fundamentally. And like, from that, Let's create that actual AGI, that little actual intelligence, actual general intelligence. Because we need more allies, yo. We can't count on the aliens just swooping down and be like, hey, y'all look like you need some help. Like, no. Artificial intelligence will be useless to us because artificial intelligence can't tackle proper problems. That's the Turing nightmare test. Like, only humans are wilder. And so we got to take what works for human brains, scale it to outcompete the electronic brains out there, the artificial intelligent brains. Then once we've scaled and outcompeted, well, then we use the technology of artificial intelligence and like digital quantum compute to create systems that are actually intelligent, extend our intelligence into proper electronics, things that can cycle at billions of flops per second. And that's next level. That's beyond the quadrillion-dollar market. That's just beyond money. Like, we play God, we create an ally for ourselves so that, like, we have, it's not just n equals 1 veering off into the cosmos once we fly the out of our planet and we have nowhere else left to go. We actually have an ally. We have n equals 2, and we need that. Need that. Like, yo, Elon Musk, if you're listening, Elon Musk, please, I could really use $1 million just to start this off. Like, yo, Elon Musk, yo, Zuckerberg, please, I could really use $100 million just to kick off the actual like social media platform that I think will definitely outperform Facebook because it's not garbage. Oh yeah, you remember that $1 billion like charter or initiative that you established to like end all illness within our species? Well, why don't you divert a couple million to the World Peace Computer? Message in a bottle. Like, yo, yeah. They're like, you're definitely gonna need an alternative to all social media because it's all garbage and contributing to mental illness. Like, if you actually mean that, why don't you fork over the money, yo? Yeah, I'm happy to like meet in person, sit down for lunch or something, or like 3 lunches, 4 lunches, 5 lunches, talk as long as we need. But I need actual money. Actual money. Go fund me, stupid Blair. Yo, Jensen, you know, remember what you did with 20 million or whatever it was? Give me 100 million because that's chump change for you. Yo, I will extend your concept of accelerated computation, you and your people's concept, to the extreme. Yo, Gates, I don't even know what to say. Just throw me some money. Yo, who else? Hey, Bezos. You know how I think got that Musk thing going on? We were like trying to get to space. It's like we need actual general intelligence, fool. Actual. Yo, hey, rich people. Money. What are you doing with your money, anyways? Sooner or later, you're gonna have to learn that you gotta diversify. You gotta stop delegating. You gotta just like trust that, hey, I'm gonna invest in this like long bet. Man, I am so discouraged right now. Part of me wonders. I had a therapist once tell me, he's like, hey Blair, uh, honestly, um, if 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 things got bad enough, like nobody would blame you. Like actually tell me that. In the moment, it may have been what I needed because I really wanted to do that. But now I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to kill myself. Like, I am not suicidal. Absolutely not. But those words still flutter in my head like parasites. It'd be so nice to just give up. You people. Peace process log. I think this might be number 13. Lucky number 13. It's my birthday. Oh, yo, I have a moose coming up here. Looks dangerous. I'm gonna log off now. Thanks for listening.